Hello people and welcome back to this level design breakdown series. This is the third part now, finally. Sorry for not uploading that much. I've been insanely busy during the past weeks, so I had no free space in my timetable to actually record and edit and render out a video. But I'd say let's just jump right back where we left off in this volcanic city breakdown. It was right before we actually kind of get close to the volcano and get an overview of the second half of the city. And coming up is actually one of my favorite shots. So let's get into it. So last time we left off here where the player climbs up this roof tile, and this is a wonderful opportunity to showcase our big landmark goal again, the big volcano where we have to go, and also guide the player already in a direction without him seeing even what's going on below there. So as you see, there's a house wall there, which is kind of blocking the vision. So it automatically pushes the player into this direction because of the direction and the space distribution. So if we actually climb up here, this is how it looks. There's still obviously the wall, which is kind of blocking the player. And this is one of my favorite methods to kind of guide the player. It seems quite weird because it's, you know, just a wall, but it gives the player so much intuitive information. Like everything is happening here where I want the focus to be. If we look in more detail, you can see a path down here maybe. There's some roof to jump on and some small platforms, some interactable objects, and overall just depth, which is really nice. Obviously, not every player will just glance at it and understand everything, but this wall helps us to kind of distribute the space to tell the player, hey, this is the correct one with the depth inside it. Something other, which is really cool in my opinion, is like this roof where we stand on. You know, it's not straight, it's kind of slanted downwards. If I would draw an arrow here and an arrow from the wall, both of them look like vectors in like programming. And if we combine those, one goes down, one goes to the right, we kind of get this slanted one in this direction. And yeah, where does it point to? It does point to the area where I want the player to go. So maths and programming and vector stuff can actually be useful here as well. So it's a really good touch to have this roof slanted downwards and not just straight. Also, the player can already kind of see and plan his own path where he wants to go. So we see there's something interactable here. We see there's something interactable here. We zoom in a little bit. There's also something interactable here. Or not interactable, but like a platform. And maybe something even here. We see there are some sharp corners and maybe a path. So the player is already able to kind of plan his route down here in this direction. So we would jump here, jump there, over here, jump over to the smaller roof, and then maybe jump down, and then we could continue over here. This is very powerful because we also see some movement here on the left. So I don't want the focus to be fully lost on the left side, since I don't want the player to go there. This is a space for the enemy. So the enemy kind of circles around here and patrols around this statue, which we're going to talk about in a second as well. So this is like more dangerous area, while this is still in this shift of power, if you remember from the last time, where the player is looking down onto the guards and not being on the same level. And I'd assume the player would love to continue with that feeling, so I guide him in this direction and let him stay on the roof and making this less appealing to him. A subtle detail I really like as well are these dwarven statues. Maybe some of you already spotted it. This guy is facing away from us, while this guy is facing towards us. We know, like in social interactions, some signs we can look out for, and we subtly notice as well. So when someone has their back turned to us, they seem unapproachable and like they're giving us the cold shoulder. Don't want us to interact with them, sorry. While the other one is like opening to us. They are looking to us, not directly to us, but in a direction we would later, we jump here, see. So they look at us, it's more inviting. I'd say let's jump to the next frame. So we kind of get close to the edge to kind of look down a little bit further. Zoom out. You see there's still like the big focus point on the right side. We still see the area where I want the player to go, but let's just keep zoomed in at this area a bit more. So as I already said, the guy with the turned back towards us, the guards which are patrolling here, making sure no one goes there, and also the standing guard. And I guess we could assume that there are some guards like on the lower thing. We also see something blocked off, so we probably cannot go there. We see these wooden planks which kind of block this path, but it's interesting. So maybe it's something even we remember. We see like the carts kind of piled up here, another ox, and then the trader feeding the ox. So there's still something going on. Another really kind of obvious thing is this is kind of a big jump down In the actual prototype, there's no fall damage, but I think some players might be very cautious about this stuff because, well, they don't want to take unnecessary damage and maybe even die. And as you can see, like, we go down, maybe there's like a recovery animation because we fell down from a high spot, and then the guards would kind of instantly charge at us where we have no chance. So to me, this feels really unintuitive. I don't want to go there. There are guards, I maybe have to recover, I take fall damage, and there's nothing really interesting apart from this one instead of this area. Now, if we jump one screenshot further, we are kind of made our first jump onto this roof and are on the second roof now. So we see still on the left, this area, and like a separation again with this roof or smaller housing stuff. We see the towers on the right again. The towers were the things we saw earlier in the very beginning, which kind of served as the entrance. So we helped the player with this to kind of orientate this themselves and make the space feel connected so the player can plan out a rough map in a sense. We have to keep in mind the player has like infinite amount of time on this roof, so there's no pressure because we're not being hunted by guards or anything, so they can truly pace themselves and even just take a second and look around, which also helps the aspect of mapping the place out on the player's hand. Well, I just noticed my audio settings got reset, so we have to continue like this. But let's continue with the smaller roof, where I just took a screenshot while we were jumping, so not of the previous roof, but this is like the only way we can go. And we see like a platform here, like the brown one we just typically used on my end. I use these as an indicator for players to show them, hey, I want you to go there. It's pretty similar to the infamous yellow paint, but I guess we all heard of this problem where different markings or spots are marked or painted with yellow paint to indicate, hey player, you can do something here with hand marks or maybe just scratches or something else. These platforms serve this purpose of making the jumps easier for the player, so it's not that skill dependent, because some players might not be able to make the jump, but if the platform extends a little bit away from the roof, it's easier because the distance is smaller, and also as a visual indicator. Some people might still fall down there, but they are not that important, I would say. I think it would be a minority, and we're kind of trying to catch the majority or like the average of the typical player. We also see different guards here, so the guards which are kind of guarding the entrance of this volcano where we want to go into. So this is probably not a good way of getting into them, because if we jump down, they just see us and run at us. We cannot really avoid them. And also there are guards like in front of the screen we cannot see yet on the screenshot, and some friendly traders, but I guess they are of no use to us right now. In the background, we also see an arch where there's a ox with a cart. They are kind of blocking this way, but this is also pretty uninteresting to us since we are focusing on the volcano and how to get in there. And actually next to the dwarven statue, there is like this side path. I almost would say hidden path, but it's not really hidden. It's more like just a side path, another way into it, where we kind of have to do rock climbing and so on, but we'll get into that. This is how it looks when we actually fall down. There's like this recovery animation I've been talking about, or I've mentioned in the earlier section. Then there are these two guards which are now seeing us and they're charging at us. Well, so there's no way of kind of escaping there. It's only this way between these pillars to kind of get to this side path we've been seeing from the top. There are also kind of guards coming from behind us, so they are like out of vision right now. But this is like the only escape path between these pillars to kind of get away from those guards and actually get inside the volcano without getting caught. Obviously, falling down is not the only way to continue. There's also the option when we kind of make the jump over on the small roof. We can kind of stay out of sight of these guards, so they're actually not seeing us. They're also not hearing us because like it's so busy in the environment. So we can run over the small roof and then make a jump almost instantly into the side area. So there's still this climb up and the side area we'll look at in a second. But like the guards are not noticing us at all. So it rewards players who are really skillful, if you can even call this a hard challenge, but it rewards players that can make this jump and don't fall down. If we now make our way over to the side area where we can access the volcano, we can see it's just two simple interactable two ledges where we can climb up onto. So the first one is just to slow down everything again, because we're doing a lot of jumping and maybe we got caught and ran away. So just to slow down everything again. Let's have a look at this almost 90-degree turn of the player. I know it's pretty unintuitive to do something like this, but I think this turn is a little bit wider. It's not exactly 90 degrees, so it's pretty okay. What do we see here now? Well, we climbed up, and then there's like the two jumps we kind of need to do, and the environment guides us in this direction because there's a wall again. I think there's also a pretty cool separation happening here again between the open space of this cave and the volcano itself. so we can clearly see, okay, point of interest and so on, and obviously the landmark itself. That's also pretty important. This smaller thing is the hole. We kind of can get into the volcano, so I kind of tease it. We kind of see the path with the 2 jumps, but we cannot see inside it because it's just so small. It's small, but it creates interest, and that's what's important to us. We want to make the player asking themselves, what's that over there? I want to go find out. Something else I really like doing is showing the player the path, like the progression he made into the level. We see like in gray, the gray roof. It's like the start point where the typical wall was, which I really like, my favorite shot almost. So we see the jump to the side roof with the separation again, with the house separation, then a jump to the second roof, or the third one in this case, and then to the smaller roof where we had to make the jump or get caught by guards. This is just super helpful for progression in my opinion, and I really like that. So I showcased the, hey, look at your progress, this is how far you've come, this is the way you've chosen to be, and I think there's always something pretty cool. For this last screenshot we're gonna take a look at in this episode, we'll have a look at this smaller thing where we actually see the hole in a little bit more detail. So I slow down the player again. You have to kind of crouch and then go in there to kind of slow down everything again. And it's pretty important again that the hole is quite wide, so the depth is really deep almost. So the player is not able to look inside what's awaiting inside from the outside. So the player really has to go through it to explore what's in there. But yeah, I guess this is where we wrap up this episode number 3. I know it's quite a little bit shorter one, but I'm going to try to make it a little bit shorter so it's more concise and not this big chunk of 20 minutes of watch time. But before we end this one, let's look at some memorable spots and some takeaways we could create for future level design. For this first memorable spot, let's just look at the very first screenshot. This is where we kind of emphasize the landmark again. So keep in mind to always focus on your landmark again. Remind the player, hey, this is where it is. I like it when it's optional, so it's not shoved into the player's face. But at some points, you kind of need to force them to remember, hey, this is your orientation point. So we can avoid the feeling where they're going, where am I right now? Let me just look around until I see the volcano, the landmark again. So here's the volcano, here's the landmark. You are here right now. Next is this almost favorite shot of mine, just because of this, I just call it Super Mario effect, where the character is placed close to a wall, so the intuitive reaction of the player is to walk away from this wall, and that in the combination with this slanted ground the player is standing on, which also gives him a direction. So remember the vector stuff, like one vector coming away from the wall, combined with the vector from the slanted ground, creates this vector pointing in the background to the actual spot I want the player to go. Also, just as a side note, the small platforms, so no yellow paint, much rather something in the environment like planks, scratch marks, whatever, just something that fits in the environment. Next again, we have an example of this space separation, the left side where we want to go to, and the right side with these towers of the entrance. This also serves as a remembrance for the player. Hey, this was the POI we saw from the very beginning. We walked through. This helps the player create a map inside their head. Where am I right now? What I'm doing? What was my progress? And so on. Then we have this jump onto the smaller roof. I could have also placed a lava pool there, but that would make the player die, reset, and he would need to kind of jump again from the beginning or maybe from a checkpoint. In this way, he still has a fail-safe. If he fails it, there's still the possibility to escape, so it's not too punishing. We don't want to make the player frustrated. Then on this screenshot, we can keep in mind, showcase player progress. Show the journey they underwent, the adventures, the learnings, the enemies they fought, and so on. You get the idea. Show what the player has done to himself again. Hey, you've achieved this. Feel proud of yourself. And last but not least, the small volcanic hole into the volcano, which is really deep. Tease areas without giving them away. Create interest, which makes the player go, ooh, I want to explore that one. But yeah, this is the end of the 3rd episode. Thanks again for watching. As always, next time we're gonna take a look at the area inside the volcano and the revisiting of spaces and how the space changed and so on. Until then, I wish you a great week and have a good one.